welcome back to another week of the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar Hoke here, Tom Jacobs. How are we doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm just realizing that always a lot closer to the camera than you are, and it's probably unfair on the YouTube viewers. The spectacular background that you've got there, the lovely face and hair of yours, and
We've done a lot to our house. If you've noticed, week over week, we have a lot of makeovers.
The renovations you have in Florida are amazing. So yeah, if I ever move to the States, that'll be where I go. But just guys, it's that part of the season now where you have to truly be a DP World Tour fanatic to enjoy this. We are at the Mallorca Open this week, the Portugal Masters next week, and then we get some really fun events the final 2 weeks of the season, right? But like these next 2 weeks, especially if you're like a guy that likes to keep track of people making their cards and stuff like that, like the next 2 weeks are vital. But other than that, like we could see some pretty lackluster fields.
Yeah, I mean, last week was a tale of two stories in the sense of, Adrian getting over the line, dominant win, unbelievable on the weekend. Really good to see. Always have been. I mean, there wasn't the controversy anticipated because he wasn't a full-time live guy, right? So it just kind of got blown over very quickly in that sense. So it didn't feel the same way as if like Gooch won an event, for example. But so it was great to see for Adrian because I've always been a fan of him. But then
there was some talk about he was a little bit overlooked on social media.
By Westy.
I didn't actually. I mean, I didn't pay much attention full stop because once he kind of built a 6-shot lead, I was kind of disinterested. But I mean, look, he got the the coverage on the TV, and they're all very fanatical about how he done, and I think he got the props that he deserved. So I don't think there was too much in it, really.
Yeah. Little bummer that the win-only selections on my end, Minwoo and Smith were right around there, third or fourth and sixth, in places in normal weeks with a little bit deeper of odds. Disappointed Minwoo's weekend, thought, again, course that would fit, game that would fit, just didn't come through. But to the second part, go ahead.
It's promising for people that like Minwoo Lee, like yourselves and me, to an extent, like that he's put back-to-back weeks together. Like that doesn't happen too often for him. So like, although it's in slightly lesser fields and he's stayed in Spain, etc., like it is a promising sign. So maybe something to keep an eye on for these last couple of events. I don't know if he's playing in South Africa, but he'll definitely be at the DP World Tour Championship.
Yeah, and he played well in Dubai, I believe, in the past too. So we've bet him, I think, at those events. So I'm excited for that. But the second part of the story, to your point of tracking cards and people that are going to qualify, Angel Hidalgo last week, that was just as big of an emotion reaction, if not bigger, for him securing his DP World Tour card. It was goal number one for him getting up on the year. So we're coming to card season right now. 3 regular season events remaining to make sure you are inside those rankings, and like a ton on the line. A made cut. Actually, a made cut normally isn't guaranteed points when it comes to races to buy. You got to get like a top. It's just not as many points. You got to play well. If you're sitting outside the number, you got to play well. A lot more on your mind. Is that an extra chip of motivation? Is it even more difficult to win when you're facing it, when the back's against the wall? I thought Ben wrote a really good introduction, Ben Coley, to his piece this week, saying it's difficult for some of the favorites to look beyond the favorites this week in some retrospect because all of them are playing freely, right? They don't have that same stress of having to get a card, having to play well. Their years are decided ahead, and it's just another week for them when, potentially also could it be an extra motivation, and you see the performance like Hidalgo had for his best of the year. So excited for that. Kind of dig both angles as we go to a brand new course, right? We haven't seen this course outside of a senior tour event. San Muntaner. Gosh, that was awful. San Muntaner.
That sounds fun to me.
Yeah, golf club. The Mallorca. Oh my gosh, Mallorca. Wow, how can I not get that? Mallorca. I can never double L it. Mallorca Golf. So I think for us, the Mallorca Golf Open, San Muntaner. There we go. That rolled off the tongue better.
That's good.
First time course for us. So you never really know. It looks resort-y. It looks something where when we get in that type of angle, we saw it on the Canary Islands when we had courses we hadn't really seen. We got low scoring. We had deep into the 20s for those guys. That seems like it could play out this week. Do you have any initial thoughts?
So me and Brad were speaking about this last night on the podcast, and it was more like he said that everything that he'd kind of read was reviews of people saying that you can get in trouble, you can go out of bounds, and water can be an impact. But I said the trouble is with those reviews is they're generally coming from handicap golfers or high level, players, but not pros, right? And I think once you get a pro there, it is completely different. And I'm so done with seeing like balls drop into the rough at US Opens and people saying it's going to be like 6 over par and it's actually like 15 under. Like it just doesn't happen, right? So I think when you look at last season, I think it was 15 under par that Jeff Winter won the Mallorca Open, and I think although the courses are not similar in any way, I think that's probably a decent score to aim for. So I think 15 under is probably the right track. Interesting point on the cards, right? Like I think to your point, you said it can go kind of one or two ways, and I think that's really true. That one, we kind of spoke about Hidalgo before we come on, that like, will that free him up to a better performance? Will he have burnt all that energy trying to keep it last week? And then I think about one of my selections later on that I'll sort of come on to, that like he's known for going on birdie runs. When you're trying to keep your card or trying to secure your card, do you play really conservative golf, to get through to the weekend and then hit it over the weekend, hit the gas pedal and try and, make those birdies? And does that change the way you play? Like there is a massive, because some people just have styles. Like, one of the people that we're going to come on to at the top of the board, like just makes birdies in bunches, right? Like it's just all he does. He goes on resort courses, makes birdies in bunches. And if he can't do that, he's pretty much a non-factor. And I don't know. Like, I think once a card comes into it, it definitely does change things. So, you've got Q score and things like that. But I think it is going to change a lot. So Portugal more so next week, but certainly into their minds this week.
Yeah, and it's almost like you'd rather have a guy well off the number than like right on the number, right? Right on the number feels like you would lean conservative. Well off,
100%.
You gotta
win. Yes.
Yeah. So it's kind of that in between. And to that, I think we can kind of transition over into what the odds board looks like. So top of the board, we have Rasmus 12-1 now, down to, I think he might have opened a little bit deeper than that. Fox 16, Adrian Otega coming back 20-1, Eddie Pepperell 25, Manzel 27, Yannick 28 are all the golfers sub 30. Now, if we mention kind of the angle, resort courses, we've seen, like, I think of what Higo did, when he got kind of lined up there at the beginning rounds when he was in fire form. Does Rasmus have that in his realm of outcomes? Does Ryan Fox have that, when he does? I mean, those guys hit it long, they score well, they get birdies. You can't really argue with some of that. I mean, Eddie doesn't maybe fit that. Eddie and Adrian maybe don't fit those builds, but played exceptional year in, year out. And then Manzel and Yannick kind of fall into a similar category. I definitely had a debate on Rasmus because we've seen some excellent golf out of him. But I just have too much interest in deeper down the board and with some places to really plant a flag up here. And maybe last week is a little inducing because bet a couple there in the mix, don't get any returns on win onlys. But I'm happy to still skip over this range and kind of fill in the next. What about yourself?
Yeah, so for me, I think that it won't be any surprise that Yannick Paul obviously got a look for me again, but I couldn't go there. Like, I think I've sort of said to you maybe before about Heather Killed and stuff. Like, eventually, like you're betting on the upside of it, but you do eventually have to kind of not give up because you'd feel stupid to give up and not be on them again. But like, if it happens, it happens. Like at 28-1, if Yannick Paul wins this week, then fine. Like we've been on him at 45-1, been on him at 80-1, been on him 100-1. Like it's. The talent is there. We know that it can go out into a bigger price, and we'll wait for that to happen. So yeah, I think he was close, and I actually think Otegi could go back to back. Like I don't think it's the perfect golf course for him. And I think if he had gone what he'd done at Valderrama and then on to the Open d'Espagne, I think I'd be a lot more inclined to do it because I think it was a bit more kind of suited to what he was playing to. But I don't see any reason why he can't play well. Then of course you've got Eddie Pepperell, who's sustained this ball striking form for such a long time. So there was obviously definitely interest in all of those guys. I don't think any of them I felt that I'd rule out. Maybe Richard Mansell, just because I like to pick on Richard Mansell. But I think that the top of the odds board is what it is for a reason.
Yeah, it's almost like a mental hurdle. Like sub 30-1 is when I have to really take a reality check and be like, can you move forward still on guys who fell highly? Because Yannick played well last week, right? Yannick
Yeah.
continued to see that, and he's deserving to be priced where he is. But I think you can make that argument that there are definitely, a little bit down the board. Now, one has been bet down a decent amount, but that fit what we're looking for when you need to birdie in the way it does. And you're coming off with the first selection here, so I'll let you open on your next pick here.
Yeah, so for me, like, when we talk about Birdie Fest, and the person I was kind of referencing earlier was Andy Sullivan. Like, this guy he's just the epitome of that. And I apply the same kind of logic to Andy Sullivan's I do Matt Wallace. You know, when everyone kind of says like Andy Sullivan's this like really winningest kind of golfer on the DP World Tour, he wins all the time, and they said the same about Matt Wallace. It all came in one year, really. Like, it was 2015. He had an extraordinary year, got himself onto the Ryder Cup team. But the last 2 wins he's had have been by 7 and 9 strokes. And like, he can just completely dominate an event if he gets going. And the way he's been striking the ball recently suggests that that's coming back again. You look at the Portugal Masters by 9 strokes in 2015. The English Championship 2020 wins at 27 under by 7 strokes from Adrian Otegi. So one, that kind of suggests that Adrian Otegi can go low, which is, backs up that kind of point we were just making. But also, just that Sullivan, when he gets in with a chance, can really, go low. So last week he was 5th in strokes gained approach and strokes gained off the tee as well. And that was his second top 5 effort in both categories over the past 5 starts. And if you remember rightly, you obviously do, at the BMW, he was right up there. It was only really the in France where he withdrew, didn't he, after a really poor start, that he's kind of been
pretty sure I bet him in France too.
Yeah, and I think we definitely spoke about him. If not, I bet him as well. Like, because he's got a really good record there, and he's a good player for that type of course. I know I said that he pursues a Birdie Fest, but there are certain courses he can do it as well. So for me, he's like 109th, I think it is, on the Race to Dubai rankings, and 117 is the current cutoff. So I don't know if he needs a card. I think he does. I think he does need to keep his card, but also, more so from that, he needs to get into the DP World Tour Championship. Like, he plays well in the Middle East at times, and that's much more what he expects. So I think he's the type of person that can kind of win here or contend here and then win at Portugal, and really boost himself up that field. So for me, the price wasn't great. Like, the kind of 30-1 number isn't amazing, but the ball striking has been superb. And if it's a resort course, I think it's going to be, then Andy Sullivan fits that bill.
Yeah, you can't argue with waking up and seeing him 900 through 13 holes. Like, it feels like it happens quite often. With
7 over through 4 as well.
Many. Yeah, true. It's an interesting point too about Valderrama. And we said this after the Offer Downhill links too, is like, you love to see a guy play well. It just is, icing on the cake. But Valderrama brings in a whole different element of, like, on the standard deviation. I mean, the best player in that field by far missed the cut, right? And you can say it's golf, right? But also at the same time, like, it's Valderrama too, that really amplifies that. Are you looking at Matty Fitz any different this week at Palmetto because of what he did last week at Valderrama? No. And also Alfred Dunhill links, when we had the weather conditions, when we had everything acting up, it's almost like 2 of the last 3 events is like, oh, man, like, do you even really worry about those if anybody played poorly at them? So I think you can kind of make the argument both ways.
I think as long as they've shown something in recent weeks, like, Valderrama is just its own unique test. Like, the fact that Andy Sullivan finished 11th there is huge, and I think it actually correlates to the fact that the scoring was a lot lower than we normally get at Valderrama. Like, I think the fact that Tate got to 19 under, whatever he got to, like, that doesn't happen at Valderrama. So, or 16 or whatever it was that he got to. But the fact that Andy Sullivan can go under par at Valderrama means that the kind of course conditions have changed a little bit. But yeah, just a bonus. Like, an 11th place finish is probably the peak of what Andy Sullivan does there. So that is just a building block for me. But to your point, like, if someone's missed the cut at Valderrama, no great shakes. It is what it is. Same thing with Dunhill links.
Yep. Amen. Next up for us both on the list, and I would say another popular selection across the industry, is Nikolai Hojgaard. And it's interesting because clearly, him and Rasmus have had an incredible run over the past couple of years, setting themselves up to be a brother duo potentially on the Ryder Cup. That's a real outcome that could happen, with one of them taking off a little bit more than the other. However, Nikolai stands here with 2 victories and is it deserving of triple, quadruple, I guess triple right now. The price, I don't know. I mean, the strike rate still isn't that far off in theory there. And, the flashes, I guess there's not that same consistency, right? We don't have a top 20 since Spain in May for, Nikolai. His win came basically around sandwiched by miscut galore, but then he closed out 2021 in an incredible degree. So it's just something where I think we're trying to pick a spot for Nikolai, and I couldn't really dream up a better spot when it comes to this type of course, the birdies he puts in, and the price. I think Nikolai kind of fits those bills. Even at 35s, I'm still willing to go there, being a Tuesday, when a Monday morning, if you woke up and bet Nikolai, he's probably 10 points deeper. But still very much interested here because he's somebody who can overpower this with anybody on tour.
Yeah, and just really, Rasmus has got one more win, and he's been in contention. It's not so much the wins difference between those two. It's the fact that Rasmus turns up most weeks and plays well, whereas Nikolai can just miss the cut or contend. That's just kind of what he is. But when you look at Nikolai's wins, he won the Italian Open last year, and it was against Tommy Fleetwood and Adrian Moronk, and then he wins the Ras Al Khaimah Championship by 4 strokes this year, in really strong fashion over Jordan Smith. Whereas you look at Rasmus Hojgaard, and don't want to take anything away, but there were playoff victories against Paratore and Rosner, which is good in Mauritius, but Justin Walters, who's found it difficult to kind of win, and he shot a final round 63 at Kranz to beat Bernd Wiesberger, who kind of thinned it into the water, whatever it was that he did that week. So, not to take anything away from Rasmus.
Who beat Rasmus recently when he had that really good first round, and then he played good on Sunday? I think it was in France. Who won that event?
Oh yeah, that guy. Yeah, the Italian guy. Yeah, no idea.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
But you know what I mean? I don't think he's as bulletproof as his consistency suggests. I think they're both kind of similar in contention. And I think very much we've had this discussion multiple times since we started this podcast, how much of a difference is there in terms of talent between Nikolai and Rasmus? And if you go back to college, I think Nikolai was actually the higher touted player. He shouldn't be the 3 times the price. If you look at, you point out the fact he hasn't been in the top 20 for a long time, and that is definitely true. He's had 3 missed cuts and nothing better than 27th over the past 2 months. But 27th at the Italian Open, he was 12th after round 1, 11th after round 2, and that was in his title defence. He was 12th at the halfway point in France, and neither of those golf courses are particularly. I mean, obviously Italy he's won on, but France isn't particularly suitable. Valderrama definitely wasn't suitable. So to get 4 rounds under his belt there is great. And he led the field in strokes going off the tee last week at Valderrama, which is huge. So now you open up the fairways. You give it. If it is difficult and we've misjudged the golf course, then it's a bad bet probably. But if it is the resort course that we hope it is, then he's going to sort of tear it up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that first victory earlier this year was a course where distance was premium, and he took advantage. So you're taking the shot on your research being to that degree. So yep, I am with you on Nikolai. I think I'm next on the odds board here where we're going, and it's somebody who to me has had a relatively sneaky last 6 weeks. Yeah, I would classify the last 6 weeks for him to be in the degree and where he's at now, and it's Louis de Jager. Louis de Jager. And when you look at distance, when you look at somebody who plays well off of the tee, he's every single week he's really finding himself, to be near the leader of off the tee. I mean, you look at 3 out of the last 6 events, I believe he's gained over a stroke per round when it comes to that, and his worst finish, he missed in France. And I don't expect France to be a course that Louis de Jager would find it for them. Outside of that, you're looking at the 3rd, 9th, 41st, 22nd, 6th. Last week, 60th at Valderrama. Again, if you're looking at an off-the-tee specialist, it's probably not the best fit in that. However, after the first round, I believe he was sitting in 8th place last week.
Yep.
So, Louis has shown a consistency as of late. And I mean, he was somebody who I think from a talent perspective, we've had eyes on, for a decent amount of time, just hasn't really broke through. I mean, he plays well when he pops down to the Sunshine Tour always. I think his last victory was in the Sunshine Tour back in 2019, had won at the closeout end of 18, just basically dominated that tour. We've seen a lot of those guys have really done well, and they'll pop up for certain events on the DP World Tour, and that's what he's basically has done, right? And I just think he does have that upside. I do like somebody who has won in the past, who has that to his degree, and the number is pretty suiting when I look at players who I think are in decent form. I mean, the longest that we see Jager currently right now is 50-1 over at DraftKings Sportsbook. So I think that's fair enough for somebody who has shown definite form. I think fits the bill when it comes to course that we're going to set out for this week, and it's kind of showing that form. So I like Louis quite a bit this week. I've had eyes on him for about a month now, and it feels like a good spot to go in.
It's interesting because my perspective of Louis Jager is that he's kind of this fiddly golf course, doesn't hit it that far type player, and you've kind of said it's the complete opposite, right? And when you look at his kind of record, he does play well in South Africa and all those places. I think he does play well, but Mauritius he was fourth, where distance can obviously help you out there. The Czech Masters he was third this year. The European Open he was 12th, where again the Porsche European Open, where the kind of distance comes into play as well. So English Championship and Hero Open he was 14th, Portugal Masters he was 14th. So when you're given these kind of wide open resort layouts, he actually does pretty well. So a different skill set to kind of what I thought Louis Jager was, and I think if I'm thinking that, and not to say that I know everything, but if I'm thinking that, then I think a lot of other people would probably think the same thing. Like he's a South African, he doesn't really dominate anywhere. And maybe that's why he's the price that he is, because if this was in South Africa, he'd be 20-1, and
for sure.
And that's just obviously he's got a better chance when it's in South Africa, but is it 3 times as likely? No. So especially the field you consider it. So I don't think we should just overlook him just because he's playing in Spain. He's played pretty well in Spain.
Yeah, I would put him, I mean, he's probably top 5 realistically in this field when it comes to distance. Let's see. Yeah, they have, so Wilco, Nikolai, Mansell, Fox, Rasmus, and then next up to that is Louis with an actual sample size. So yeah, it's pretty sneaky when you look at that. I mean, off the tee rankings, he's strong off the tee. I think it's a sneaky fit for Louis.
Over the last 3 months, he's played 37 rounds. He averages 317.7 yards off the tee. So he's a completely different golfer than really I've kind of given him credit for. And that's great. I mean, it's certainly someone I'd be interested in. I mean, he's actually above by 0.7 of a stroke, but he's above Hojgaard, Nikolai Hojgaard in terms of distance. So he's right in between the two brothers. So yeah, I think that's great.
And he's normally a good putter, and that's what I like too. You kind of have that combination of maybe at these courses, somebody who can mash it and somebody who can putt it. Like that player wins. It's just like a simple fact, because Nikolai and Rasmus have that ability. Cam Champ wins out of nowhere because he has that ability. I think that skill set is a sneaky skill set that can just play at certain spots and you can take it deep, because you're going to have to putt this week. That's what we're thinking.
Yeah, and I think around the green game gets overlooked because it's something that you can't really rely on. Putting, we always say, is so volatile, and around the green game it is. His numbers haven't been great, but I imagine that he gets punished a little bit because of the distance and stuff like that. So I think, the more you kind of talk into Louis Jager, the more I'm interested. So yeah, kind of an awakening of kind of what I thought Louis Jager was and what he is. So yeah, I'm enjoying that.
Cool. So that's next on the list. Is it? I got somebody who's, I think they're down to 66-1. Anybody for you in this range as well, or should I tee it up next?
You can go next, but I've got one that's kind of 70-1. So.
Yep. Perfect. Okay. So next, which is very funny and kind of ironic, I think, in the way that I'm going to go after saying what I'm saying about Louis Jager, because to push the chips all the way in on a course that maybe we don't know everything about is risky. And we've done ourselves, sometimes you hit, sometimes you're all over and it's the only way it's going to play out. But regardless of that, if you look kind of at the lead-in form and the statistics of Darius van Driel, I think it's a shorter number than I probably anticipated personally. But I really like what I saw over the last 2 weeks. You know, an 8th at the Open de España, and then 19th last week at Valderrama. And I would put Van Driel up there pound for pound, probably with the more accurate, if not most accurate, golfers that are on the DP World Tour, in my opinion. I mean, if you look at him from kind of like a last 50 round perspective, let's see, if you look at accuracy, he would be, yeah, I guess he ranks about 12th in that on weighted accuracy. And that's kind of his name of the game overall, I would say, is you're just going to trust he's going to be in the fairway every single time. But he's still able to gain a substantial amount on the field off the tee. I mean, he hasn't lost. He lost to the field at the Open de France. Outside of that, he hasn't lost to the field off of the tee since the Porsche European Open. In between there, he has had 5 top 25s. Including the last 2 weeks that we mentioned there. And his irons flashed the best that they have all season pretty much since the Dutch Open, which was in May, and he missed the cut there. So kind of a trend coming in. I just kind of really like that. Again, if you see not corollary, but location type of results, don't think it's a bad thing to kind of put a feather into the cap there. He did play well when we were at the Canary Islands. He had an 8th place there. Last year, which was one of his better finishes. He's also right on that line for a card right now, which is a little shocking when you look at his year, because sometimes you see guys on the PGA Tour that end up getting through because of 1 or 2 finishes, and I feel like Van Driel has had that. But he is literally the guy on the line right now when it's guys who are going to get tour cards. So a ton to play for Van Driel, 66 to 1. I'm in.
Yeah, I think it's wise to not go all in on, you know, we saw it in France, right? Like we decided I think it was France where we decided what we wanted from a golfer, and it didn't turn out that way, right? And, you know, it happens, and you do have to draw a line in the sand of what you want to do. But if you're making 4 or 5 selections, let's have one that kind of gives you the chance to take the other side of that. So, I certainly think it's a wise choice. I was a little bit put off by the price. I thought that he was shorter than, you know, Darius van Driel should be, but that's more of a, if you put a label over his name, you'd probably be absolutely fine. So it just depends how you view it.
Yep. I'm cool with that argument. All right, up to you.
So Sebastian Garcia Rodriguez is someone that, again, a little bit of a sticker shock in terms of the price this week, I will admit, but I think that's a theme all the way along with me, really. Like, Sullivan was a little bit shorter than I wanted him to be. Sebastian Garcia Rodriguez is a little bit shorter than I wanted him to be. Like, you're just going to have to take it because it's the Mallorca Open and we're in a field where there's no one really here. So for me, 7 of the last 9 times he's played in Spain, he's made the cut, which is, you know, a pretty substantial effort for someone of his caliber. 24th, 6th, and 15th the last 3 weeks in strokes gained tee to green, 21st, 14th, and 38th in approach. He's playing some really nice golf, and if you go back to last year, he was 5th in this event, which is actually his 3rd best performance ever according to the OWGR rankings. He played really well that week and didn't really get much out of it, because Jeff Winter had shot that. I think he shot 2 62s that week. Jeff Winter, I think he opened with a 62 and shot one on the Saturday as well. And you could just see that he was pushing. I think he was 5 shots back after round 2, had to push. He was 6 going into the final round back and all that sort of stuff. But what I liked about him is he never really lost composure. He kind of stayed there all week. So I think that there's more coming from Sebastian Garcia Rodriguez to suggest that he can. Whether he can win or not is up for debate. But he was 5th at the halfway stage at the Italian Open. He was 22nd at the halfway stage in France. He was 11th after 54 holes at the Dunhill Links. He was 13th after 54 holes and 36 holes at the Open de España. And then he was 14th last week at Valderrama, where he was 5th after round 2. So he's been basically in contention, or, you know, in and around the top 10 for the last 5 weeks, and just hasn't been able to get the job done. Is that a sign that he's just not good enough? And, you know, that's definitely potential. But you go back to the ISPS Hander, he was 5th after round 1. He's definitely the type of guy that can get himself in the mix, and probably a first round leader bet like I know we've had those kind of conversations in the past. I think that is his game, and he was the one when I was talking at the start. Like, will that change the way he plays in the sense that he's got to keep his card? Like, he's 115th in the world ranking in the DB Tour world rankings, and 117 is a cutoff. So he is, if Van Driel's on the border 117, Garcia Rodriguez, we could see a pretty fascinating thing between the two of those over the weekend. But, can he still do what he does, which is go lights out and just hope he makes a score and hangs around? Or will he have to be conservative and then shoot over the weekend? It could go into his mind. I don't know what type of attitude he has. But to me, that strikes me as something that could potentially weigh in. So that would be the one negative, but otherwise I think he's got a great shot at contending.
Yeah, my one negative would be every single time I feel like Sebastian Garcia Rodriguez lines up perfectly for an event, he finishes dead last.
Yeah.
I've had that happen multiple times when betting him. But this is an interesting fact. So if I look at the last 2 years of events that have been played in Spain on the DP World Tour, there's a good amount of them. So golfers who have played in at least 4 of them, or let's say, I guess if I stretch it out, 5. Let's say at least 5 of these events, because these guys tee it up. No, 4. We'll use 4 as a cutoff here. First, Adrian Otegui. So we're Spanish golfer there. Second, Yannick Paul. Interesting to our earlier argument.
Yeah.
Third, Angel Hidalgo. Okay. Again, to rank that high on a list like that is impressive, where there's at least some type of a sample size, 4 events. Fourth, Alfredo Garcia Heredia, another Spanish golfer with not that much business doing at the top of a list like that. And then you keep going down. Fifth would be Ryan Fox. Sixth, Sebastian Garcia Rodriguez. So we're looking at 4 of the top 6 spots being taken by Spanish golfers. 3 of those odds way down the board, right? Sebastian Garcia, like you mentioned, it just fits the bill of you probably should think about having, a home golfer on your list, because it just elevates their game. Like, it's something that's really cool to see. And it's those that are thriving in those moments. It's awesome for that. So I think there's just something hidden in the numbers that you can find when you look at there, because golfers have definitely shown up when it matters the most, and they have a lot of people supporting them.
And I think, like, further to that, like you say, there's a lot of events for the Spaniards, and not only that, they're kind of the similar events. Like, they are these resort events. So you look at his performances. Mallorca last year, I've already spoken about, 5th place. He was 6th at the Portugal Masters in 2020. It's not Spain, but it's neighbouring, and it's a similar sort of event, right? Then you go to Tenerife Open 2021, he finishes 8th. Like, they're all the same sort of event. They're all the same sort of area of the world and all that sort of stuff. So even at the Andalusia Masters at Valderrama, which shouldn't really be suitable, he's played well there as well. So Catalonia Championship, all his best finishes, if you're looking, you can go down to 50 performances on the world ranking sites now, which is probably too many, right? But a lot of them are Spain. Like, he's got a 2nd place finish at the Open de España, which is his best finish on the Challenge Tour, 3-time winner on the Alps Tour, but otherwise he hasn't really broken through. So there's definitely a concern that he won't break through. But I think for a top 5, and definitely for DraftKings, I think Sebastian Garcia Rodriguez makes a lot of sense.
Yep, I'm there. Let's pick up a little pace here as we close out. Still long shots. I got 3 selections left. Each of us are on one of those guys, so I'll let you talk. I'm a golfer who we really need the putter to show up for this week. But if I go into my final 2 selections, first one for me would be, and it looks like still triple digits in one book here stateside, Alex Fitzpatrick. I'm going back to the well.
Yeah.
We don't know what he is. What he has been is pretty darn good. for still getting to have 100 to 1 on this golfer. I mean, last week, we saw him exceptional with the irons, did not putt it very well. I mean, lost, I think, over like 4 strokes putting, there, T37, blows his brother out of the water. It was almost a little difficult, I felt, even with him and Norman, not to see them push on a little bit, because there was definitely times they were inside the top 20 with opportunity. I think Alex Fitzpatrick can break through in a huge way, and he doesn't have status anywhere next year, right? He's kind of in this no man's land. He's one of a perfect example: win or go to Q school. Like, that is what he's going to have to do. He's going to get sponsor invites. Maybe he's going to be okay. But, for somebody in that position, you are motivated to play well and to win. So I think Alex Fitzpatrick is one for me. Second golfer that I'll be going into, and another one that I've kind of had my eyes on for a good amount of time. It just feels odd just to see him play as well as he has. Is Andrew Wilson. Andrew Wilson, 130 to 1. And Andrew Wilson is just somebody, if you look at kind of recent form, 11th last week at Valderrama. He first popped on the radar when he was 16th at the Italian Open, followed up by 26th at the Kazoo Open. Best finish of the year for him, where is it at? In Spain. Best finish, I believe, last year for him. Let me see, because he ranks high on this list. Last finish, oh, no, I guess that was he's played 4 times in Spain this year. 11th in the 7th place. You know, like those are literally the best finishes he has had all year long. And that's somebody who I kind of like that. And his game, I don't really know, all that much about him. He's better than field average in distance for sure. Has gotten hot with the putter over the last stretch. I've talked about that skill set being something you like. 130 to 1. He had a really, really, really good end of the year last year on the Challenge Tour. Like he had a sneaky strong season on the Challenge Tour without a win. And that's enough for me to know that the kid can play. I guess I say kid, he's up to 28 years old now, but I think he's a strong bet at 130 to 1 with upside there. So that does it for my card outside of who we're on together. If you want to run through your final selections.
Just a couple of quick words just before we move on. Like I think Alex Fitzpatrick is top 6 in both approach and tee to green over the last 2 months, which is basically when he's been playing. So that's just huge, right? And I think to your point, like he does need to win. I think he knows he's going to get the sponsored invite, so the pressure's not the same, but he also wants to prove himself, right? So that's key. When you talk about Andrew Wilson, those being his peak performances, like this season, the peak performances of his career, right? You look at he was 3rd at the Open to Portugal. Again, Portugal not too far away from Spain. ISPS Handler 7th. He finished 32nd at the Open Championship, which was nice in 2019, but 3rd at the Importer Challenge on the Challenge Tour, which I think is Spain as well. 11th at Andy Lucia Masters. Again, I just like the fact that he's done it on both kind of resort and tough golf courses as well. It gives you that kind of variety there.
He was a good amateur too. Looking through those numbers, like he was a strong amateur.
Yeah, so I think maybe he's just one of those people that it takes a long time to figure it out, and now he has, right? And we'll just see where he goes from here. Yeah. So to me, Renato Paratore, the reason I'm going back to him, I just feel that when you've got a course that you don't know too much about, when you've got a field strength like this, it's good to lean on someone that's had a couple of wins, and that's Paratore ticks that box. So he isn't quite in the same form that he was in when he was 3rd at the Kazoo and 4th at the ISPS Handler, which obviously was in Spain, but he has finished 13th and 32nd in back-to-back starts in Spain, and I just think he can find it. Like, I know his driver hasn't been great, and maybe distance is going to affect him here, but it's wide open. There should be a bit more confidence in his swing, and I just think 100 to 1 Renato Paratore makes a ton of sense considering he's in decent form and is a winner. So I like that, and then we'll obviously go into our final section, who is Maverick Aincliffe, which this is a guy I seem to remember us talking about him a lot at the start of this kind of podcast, way back, like at the very beginning, because it was kind of him and Sean Crocker that were kind of filling those strokes gain approach numbers out. And that's what Aincliffe is doing again, right? He's been, I know that it's kind of skewed at the Dunhill links, but if you take that in, he's been 4th and 2nd in strokes gain approach, and 9th, 15th, and 1st in tee to green over the last 3 weeks. So eventually that has to catch up. And I say that knowing that he's probably worse at putting than me and you, Sky. Last week was his first. Go on. I feel like you had a rebuttal.
No, I was going to say, but he's 200 to 1. Like that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, does he deserve to be that priced with how good that's trending? I'm going to take that risk every day, and you pray he closes his eyes and it goes in.
Yeah, like
a lot. He needs to put him in a lot, but yes,
we do. But I think the fact that he was 21st last week, and that was his first top 25 since last year's Porsche European Open. And he's now playing in Spain again, which I think is a huge factor. Like, he finished 2nd at the Canary Islands last year, and although he was only 63rd at the Catalonia Championship this year, he was 9th at the halfway stage. And to be, top 4 in strokes gained approach over the last 3 weeks and top 15 in each of the past 3 weeks in tee to green, that's just huge. Eventually, he's going to putt. He's a 3-time winner on the China Tour in 2019, which is how he got here. Can he win? Probably not. Like, the putter's probably going to stop him winning, but I certainly think he can top 10, top 15, and those bets are going to be quite nice, and definitely for DraftKings signups as well. So I would take a chance that for some reason he just works out the putter. I think if it's going to be anywhere, it's going to be in Spain, because that's where he's played pretty good stuff. So
yeah, I totally agree. I'm excited. 200 to 1 when you look at those numbers, when you always run to ball striking and you see that, and it's over time. It's not just a 1 week or 1 round flash, right? It's been consistency, and he's been somebody who's strung those approach weeks together in the past. So I do like that a lot. All right, let's make sure we plug for the audio listeners. If you've gotten this far and you watch this on YouTube, we do appreciate it. If you're somebody who watches on the commute, we've kind of gotten a little bit of Tuesday routine. I don't know if we're going to close out the year that way. I kind of like a little bit more information too. It's been helpful, kind of a research, and would like to get a little busy. But if you are also having life getting busy on your end and you're more of an audio listener in the car, whatever it may be, you can find us on all of the different platforms, daily fantasy sports picks and bets, The Mix, Mayo Media Network. We go a long way for the support. Rate, review, subscribe, 5 stars. Love the comments always. We appreciate you guys continuing with us as we get into the final stretch of the year. And with that, Tom, do you mind reviewing your card here as we close out?
Absolutely, yeah. So Andy Sullivan with me at 30 to 1, Nikolai Hojgaard at 35 to 1. I do really like a lot of things you said about Louis Jager. You've kind of opened my eyes a little bit on him. Not sure I'm going to go there because I've got a pretty loaded card, but definitely active to yours. Garcia Rodriguez at 70 to 1, Renato Paratore at 100 to 1, and Maverick Antcliffe at 200 to 1, hoping he can putt.
Yes, amen to that last statement. Nikolai Hojgaard, 35 to 1 for me. Louis Jager, 50 to 1. Darius van Driel, 66 to 1. Alex Fitzpatrick is, I think he saw, I said a 100 to 1 available there. Andrew Wilson, 130 to 1. And then with you, Maverick Antcliffe, 200 to 1. Tom, let's close out the Spanish stretch with a W. We've been close. We've been all over it. It's time to close this year strong. And then we have some fun events to finish it up. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think we should win. This is just the best way to go about it, right? I mean, that's probably what these golfers should do. Like they're looking for a card, just win. It's just easier, isn't it? Like Antcliffe, just putt better. It's it's pretty simple.
Yep. Amen to that. Thank you all again for your support. We appreciate it. We'll catch you next week.